Hello, Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for To Your Eternity, Chapter 139.5. When we last left our heroes, after Fushi discovered Mizuha stabbing Funa, Mizuha was all, love me and I'll feel better, and Fushi kind of pushed back. And then we heard a clapping sound from Funa, whose knocker is now fully taken over, and we revealed the knocker inside of Mizuha is the reincarnation of the Guardian Knocker. And that the Knockers, instead of their normal tactic of just like physically taking someone over, like in the old days, have been shrinking down and getting in people's brains and like occasionally taking them over, I think, until eventually their host body is killed and they can fully take over, as we saw with Izumi, with Funa, with Memori. Not yet with Mizuha, but that's probably coming at some point in the not too distant future. And yeah, we also learned that the Knockers believe that wanting to die is tantamount to being dead, which is how they justify killing Funa. And also that the Knockers want to live with Fushi, is specifically what the Guardian Knocker says at the end of last chapter. So yeah, lots of really interesting things to kind of dig into. And so let's dive right on into chapter 139.5. We have a color cover here of Mizuha. I'm actually assuming that's the Guardian Knocker, because we see a bunch of silhouetted figures behind her. And in just a first quick glance, I can see Memori and I think Izumi. So I'm guessing those are all people who have been taken over by Knockers. Either way, chapter 139.5, Making Up Part 2. And we open on Tonari, who I don't think we've seen since she got on to Fushi for using her friends to advance his relationship with Mizuha. But she's looking at the hair charm that Fushi kind of pressured Mizuha into giving her. And she kind of like looks at it kind of sadly. And then I think this is Tonari talking here. And what is it you don't like, Tonari? Mizuha joining us? Her winning over Fushi? I know that's not it. In both cases, what I really wanted was to protect my friends. I think she's like talking to herself in the third person here. I was kind of confused about that line, what is it you don't like, Tonari? But I think it's just her in the third person. Her winning over Fushi? I know that's not it. In both cases, what I really wanted was to protect my friends. It wasn't anything major, just a simple fixation. And then she kind of flashes to an image of Fushi in her mind and starts to blush. I think she's like awakening to some like romantic feelings for Fushi here. Whoa, no! Why do I keep thinking about stuff that's got nothing to do with anything? Now that's definitely where her mind is going. Damn it! It wasn't supposed to be like this. I know something just went wrong when my body turned back into a kid's. Oh yeah, that's something we haven't really touched on too much, is that, like, she's lived her whole life into, like, her 60s. And then even further at the aftermath of the Siege of Renril, and then she was revived as, like, a 14-year-old. So yeah, that's kind of something to sort of keep in mind with her. Anyway, we flash back to one of the conversations she had with Fushi. I just want to make sure this world is really peaceful, because we're going to live and die in this world. And then Fushi sort of like, and she specifically flashes back to Fushi's sort of stunned, huh? And Tonari kind of gets straight to the point. Was he planning to keep us around forever? Bringing us back to life after we died? His immortal comrades? And we see Tonari's face there. And I can't tell if she's either like, I think my first impression is that a part of her maybe wouldn't mind, which would tie into her burgeoning romantic feelings for Fushi that have come about thanks to her youngified body. But also maybe she just kind of is not happy about the idea and aware that she can't really do anything to stop it. that Fushi can just kind of revive her infinitely. Anyway, all that being said, it's time to get back to the plot. As we come back to that tunnel, as Fushi reacts to what the Guardian Knocker told him. Live together? With you knockers? That's a load of crap. It's pure selfishness. Just the thought makes me sick. And the Guardian Knocker kind of gets up. Why? We've reformed. We put all our cards on the table. We're doing just what you wanted. I mean, you call it reforming, but you're still killing people. We will commune with your flesh and shoulder your pain, because you hate pain. Your beloved March said it as well, that taking lives is wrong. She is the one who roused our spirits. Wait, what? When did that happen? I mean, it must have been something that happened near the end of Renril, I guess. I don't quite remember that line. But, so, did what March said way back when kind of lead to a whole... What the Knockers at least perceive as a 180 in their worldview? I think it's really important to note is that their worldview has not really changed that much. They still are killing people, even if they don't really see it as killing people. But they really are still killing them. Anyway, the Guardian Knocker continues. It seems you wish to be rid of us, but your efforts are entirely misguided. We, the Guardians, only want to work with the Knockers to seek salvation for the heart. That is not defiling the body, but increasing its resistance. So hold on. Has the Guardian Knocker been leading the Guardians? Are the Guardians even really still active? All we've really seen of the Guardians is that Mizuha's grandfather is, I think, technically the de facto leader, and that Izumi wanted nothing to do with it. And then Mizuha's grandfather. And then Mizuha did some research, but I don't remember her becoming like a leader of the Guardians or anything. That's the one thing that's kind of confusing me right now. Is that, like, are the Guardians an active force in the world right now? I don't think there's really any evidence supporting that. Anyway, Fushi kind of mocks her. Yeah, that sounds great. So, how is it connected to finding my soul? And we get this really creepy Mizuha, or Guardian Knocker, shot with, like, the square of blood around her face. She approaches Mizuha with, like, bloodied hands, and then says, how should we approach this? And then Fushi shoves her away. The Knocker hits the floor. Ow! Huh? Oh, Mizuha wakes up. Because she says, huh? More missing time? Fushi, what happened? And then she looks up at Fushi. Fushi, did I do something wrong? And then she, like, reaches her hand out, and Fushi slaps it away. Maybe not knowing if she's Mizuha, the Guardian Knocker, yells, don't touch me! And Mizuha's just stunned. Fushi! And Fushi looks at her. Which one are you? Huh? Please, don't hate me. I love you. And we see she starts to cry. Admittedly, it seems like I love you is being used as Mizuha could be using it as evidence that she's Mizuha, though she wouldn't really know enough about the Guardian Knocker to try to make that as some distinction, or even that she doesn't even know that she's two people right now. My point being that Mizuha loving Fushi is not unique to Mizuha, and every single Guardian leader that met Fushi fell in love with him. You know, Hayase in her own yandere way, Hisame did, Kahak definitely did in that whole clusterfuck of a storyline. I have a lot of problems with the second half of the past arc, and one day, if it becomes really relevant, I might really go into a lot of my issues with it. But let's just say the teasing of a pseudo-queer romance between Kahak and Fushi, only to completely turn it on its head with Kahak thinks Fushi is becoming a woman through being forced to use the Perona form, was a mess. It was a hot mess, and I don't know where Oima was going with it, and I'm glad she dropped it, because it was not good. Anyway, back to the actual plot. I love you. And she can't get it out through her tears, and she looks up at Fushi. So, love me. So here's an interesting thing, and I'm not sure if it means anything, or if I'm just looking too much into it. But she doesn't finish her thought. She doesn't say, I love you, so love me. She says, I love. Like, if you just look at her completed word, she says, I love, so love me. Which, I don't know. It feels like. I mean, Mizuha distinctly seems possessive of Fushi, obviously. All the Guardians have, to an extent, seemed possessive of Fushi. And Mizuha's, in the end, no different. And I feel like that's how it's showing it. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Fushi is just kind of stunned, and then just says, don't try to control me. Then he shapeshifts into something so small that we can't see it. Maybe it's the mosquito form again? And she just kind of... And Mizuha, like, collapses into the pool of blood. Fushi! And she starts to cradle her head. And Funa comes over. Or at the very least, the Funa knocker. Funa is dead. But the Funa knocker. Mizuha looks at her. You're alright? And the knocker just smiles, and I'm gonna see if I can get a better look on that panel. Just kind of like holds, pulls Mizuha's head in. And then we come back to Fushi, who has come back to human form and is running through the streets. And flashes back to what the boy in black said. Sadaru, I think is his name now. The knockers chose coexistence. Now the world is at peace. We lost. And Fushi runs. Damn it. What's going on? So everything the guy in black said was right? Then what am I supposed to do? Do I have to admit this is a free and peaceful world? I mean, it's not really. It really isn't. The knockers are still killing people. Someone. And then we see a scene of Gugu, who I love. I love my boy. Iddy's making stew. Gugu. What would Gugu think now? Maybe I should go home and tell everybody. And he flashes to everyone sitting around the dinner table. No. If I did that, their peaceful lives would fall apart. Bro, you have to tell them. You have to let them know. At a certain point, you have to, like, open up to people again. I have to keep the world running right. I won't go back. I won't go home. I can do this. I'm not getting weaker. I'll fix it myself. And he bumps into something. Ow! And he falls back, and we see that he hits Tonari. Yeah, he ain't keeping this a secret for much longer. And Fushi looks down at her. Tonari? Fushi? That wasn't on purpose, okay? And then the chapter ends. Okay. So, much less of a game changer than last time, which makes sense. Eventually just has to sort of... It's much more Fushi kind of reeling from everything that he's learned. But let's take this in order, because this is a chapter that can pretty easily be divided into 3 parts. First with Fushi, first with Tonari, and then with Fushi and the Knocker, and then Fushi and Mizuha. And maybe even Fushi alone, but that's not a whole lot going on and that can kind of be tied in with Fushi and the Knocker, honestly. The first thing we see is sort of kind of Tonari's thoughts on what's going to happen to her after she dies. Specifically, kind of acknowledging that, like, Fushi wants her to be immortal with him. Which kind of makes sense, that Fushi is immortal, and he wants people to be immortal with him. And now he has that. And I don't think we ever really kind of touched on... I mean, we touched way back in the aftermath of Kyoran's death, of Fushi's just being tired of people dying over and over again. And this is sort of a similar outgrowth from that, but we also haven't really touched on that in, I don't know how many chapters, because it's hard to keep number of chapters straight in this series. And so it does very much kind of seem to be that Fushi was at least assuming they would all live forever together, that he would just keep reviving them over and over again. And I said earlier that Tonari wouldn't really have a say in whether or not he revives her. Um, but that's not quite true, because she can, in the end, if she wants, just sort of go to paradise, and not keep her soul around. If Fushi's just going to revive her over and over again, she might kind of choose that. I don't know. But whatever's going on with Tonari will definitely explode into the next chapter, given how this one ends, with Fushi and Tonari having an unintended meeting. But before we talk about that, let's talk about Mizuha and the Guardian Knocker. So the first thing I kind of want to bring up is I said in my last review that the Knockers were definitively wrong, and the show must understand the Knockers are definitively wrong. And I still think in the end, the show is aware the Knockers are definitively wrong, that they are not peaceful, that killing suicidal people is not an answer, it is not good, it is not noble, it is bad, it is still murder. And so my gut instinct is that when Fushi says on page 11, do I have to admit this is a free and peaceful world, he's going to learn that he's wrong, that the Knockers still have to be defeated, the Knockers are still killing people, but one thing that worries me is that this is the show that gave a 4-year-old a euthanasia drug for no adequately explained reason, and so I'm still a little bit skeptical from that, because that was one of the worst writing decisions I've ever seen. It's just completely nonsensical, and so I'm a little bit mistrusting, particularly on that front. Though also, it's written by the author of The Silent Voice, who had more than her fair share, which is a series that had more than its fair share of suicidal protagonists. So, I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot going on, a lot to think about. So I'm gonna actually leave whether or not the show. I'm going to assume the show disagrees with the Knockers, and leave it aside for now until I get more evidence. And let's talk a little bit about. God, Mizuha is so weird. Actually, no. I was looking at the how should we approach this. That's actually the Knocker. And I realize she doesn't actually answer Fushi's question. Maybe she just kind of runs out of time before Mizuha takes over. But Fushi asks, "How is what she's doing connected to finding my soul?" And her response is, "How should we approach this?" Which maybe she's starting to explain it, maybe, but also she's kind of getting all up in his space, which is very much a Mizuha thing. I don't know. It was a really kind of a weird moment. And then we have Mizuha, who, even lying in a pool of her own blood, is just really obsessed with Fushi. Not her own blood, Funa's blood, I should say. I don't know. Mizuha's a piece of work. I'll say that much. Didn't she just wake up after immediately after she had stabbed Funa? In Mizuha's perspective, she just killed a girl. She still just killed a girl. She woke up, she saw her, spear in the girl, and she's instantly like, "Love me, Fushi." Okay, Mizuha, I see you. You're a mess. You're a mess of a human being. But yeah, and then we have Fushi and Tonari, at the end. And we don't really get a whole lot there, as the chapter kind of ends as soon as they hit each other. But I am very glad. So first of all, I just want to talk about I keep saying first of all. At this point, we're well past first of all. I love that Gugu is the first person that Fushi thinks of when he's like, what do I do? I need someone to help me. And it's his older brother from way back in Takanaha that he thinks of first. He thinks of fucking Gugu in his cool as hell jacket. I love Gugu so much. We've not had any Gugu since I started. That's really even, Gugu was only barely in this arc at all, really. Like, he shows up occasionally, and he briefly did things at the end of Renril. Gugu hasn't really been relevant since Taknaha, but I really hope Gugu gets relevant again. He's a king, and he deserves the world. Like, I would die for my dragon-headed son, and I love that he's the first person that Fushi thinks of when he's looking for someone to help him. He is not the person he gets, because it's time for Tonari. And I mean, he's going to have to, like, there's no way. Looking at this from, like, basic story structure, there is no way he does not, given, everything that happened right before this scene, the son running into Tonari, the son specifically thinking about the group as a whole, but Tonari is a part of that group. Tonari's going to know everything. He has to tell Tonari next chapter, which will then lead to the rest of the Immortal Gang learning that there are knockers still around, and hopefully make them an active member of the cast again, because it's largely like just kind of been the Fushi, Bon, and Yuki show for a while, and I am more than happy to get the rest of the gang back in. Anyway, that's all I have to say for this chapter. I think, yeah, this was in the end a pretty fine chapter. Sort of moving things along, raising some kind of thorny questions, and we'll see exactly how that all plays out. I'm assuming Oima's not saying suicidal people are basically dead, because that is a take. It is a bad take, actually. I'm not even gonna soften that up. That's a bad take. It's an awful take. So I'm assuming that's not where she's going with this. And I'm gonna put my faith in her, and we'll see what happens with this confrontation with Tonari. So I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, do whatever makes it happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!